So today we're providing this free seminar. The title is AP Test, a new game changer in college application. Right now is a season for high school kids to select their courses. And 7EDU, as you know, we provide personalized education for K-12. And we have received a lot of questions from the parents and students, like what's the difference between AP and honor classes? How to choose AP to really reflect kids' interest? And then what does AP do through the college application process? So with all these questions, as 7EDU's priority is always to help our students and community so the kids can really reach their potential, find their passion. And so we invited our expert teachers to have in-depth analysis of AP courses and tests. Before that, I'd like to give a quick introduction of 7EDU. So we're founded 8 years ago. And then through these 8 years, we have helped many students to reach their dream, go to their dream school. And by doing that, we're a all-in-one education organization through VIP full support, counseling, and through the applications. And then also we have extensive resource from the university professors and then teachers to help kids to do their own independent project research based on their passion to discover their talents. And of course, we also have a full support for kids' academic enrichment. And if any kids are interested and good at competition, we provide in-depth competition training and then also prepare them, help them with the test prep. And during the spring break and summer, we also provide, because we're located in Silicon Valley, so we have this special program, industry internship. And then we also have youth entrepreneurship program. So there's a lot to discover. And again, our mission here is really to help family and students to reach their potential. Without further ado, so I'm going to introduce our speakers. They're all very experienced teachers. And also they have taught many students and helped them to get into the top universities. So first, I'm going to introduce Mr. Julian, and then his specialty is AP Science.
All right, so just to start off a few of the different AP tests, I began with AP Biology. So AP Bio has a relatively average pass rate in terms of AP tests. It was around 59% that passed in 2021, but a very low 5 rate, only 7.4% in 2021. So when students are looking to take AP Science tests, it's usually either A, because they are really passionate about the subject, and or B, they want to get a 5 on the test and try and get college credit. So considering this average pass rate but really low 5 rate, that suggests that AP Bio is difficult in some aspects, yet not all. So certain sections of the test have much lower scores than others do. And over the past few years, the lowest couple have been Unit 2, Cell Structure and Function, and Skill Category 5, Statistical Tests and Data Analysis. And because of this, we can assume that AP Bio is very memorization heavy. And this especially becomes the case when you consider how much knowledge there is to absorb over the whole course. So now if we talk a bit about the strategies to try and overcome some of these challenges. AP Bio covers a really wide range of topics. So you really want to try and focus your practice down and study concepts that are priorities to the student as an individual. So many students will struggle with the same units as others will, but there might also be a unit or a chapter here or there or a skill that your student should focus even more on. And targeting your practice on these skills and these concepts will allow them to essentially overcome the difficulties that are specific to them. Because there will be chapters and sections and skills that just come much more naturally to a student than some of the others. And the free response section is also a bit of a marathon, you could call it. The extensive knowledge that you need of all the different topics they might cover, alongside the ability to actually synthesize some of those concepts together. So this means that concept synthesis is really a very key skill, the ability to tie in ideas that might not be related on the surface, but the student needs to dig deeper for these free response questions to really answer the entire thing and prove that they have mastery over the subject. So also, this optimized study schedule idea gives them more time to cover some of the more scientific concepts. This includes things like statistical testing and data analysis that are key to the test in the class that are added on top of all the bio knowledge that gets covered. So now if we move on to AP Chemistry. AP Chemistry is similar to bio in the sense that it requires really excellent, just essentially knowledge learning and retention skills. But a set of underlying skills plays a much larger role in the difficulty of the class and the difficulty of the test, because it is also one of the classes with a bit of a lower AP 5 score rate, with it being 11% both 2019 and 2021. And there are units that are typically scoring lower across the board than some others, suggesting that there are also hard parts to AP Chemistry. So some of the strategies that you could use for AP Chemistry. The class also covers a wide range of topics that are asked on during the test. So similar to AP Bio, you really want to focus your practice down and study on some of these concepts that are priorities to the student as an individual. You want to devise a system to target some of those key areas, especially targeting some of those key skills that are crucial to AP Chemistry. And a few of those key skills are visualization, which is essentially just being able to analyze pictorial representations of chemical systems and processes, being able to understand and draw sketches, and understand microscopic origins of chemical and physical properties that they'll be tested on. The second is mathematical reasoning. Many of the math questions on AP Chemistry don't ask for numerical answers, and the ones that do, it's up to the student and their math skills to answer them correctly. But the ones that don't, the student needs to understand the implications of having mathematical results. They need to understand why chemists would want to use these equations and get these numbers in actual lab work. The third is data analysis. The student will be presented with experimental data. They'll be asked to analyze results, justify claims. So reviewing graphical representations of data and being prepared to make them is necessary. Very good skill. And the final one is contextual understanding. The AP Chemistry test really likes to give true answer choices that are irrelevant to the question, or correct answers with incorrect explanations. So the student needs to be able to spot those, understand them in the context of the question, and know why an answer is true, why specifically it is true. So being able to ask why becomes a very useful skill to develop this contextual understanding. Now moving on to AP Physics. AP Physics is notorious for being a math class and a science class all clumped up into one. So depending on the AP Physics classes that your student will want to take, and we'll talk a bit about that momentarily, but having Algebra 2 level skills for AB or AP Calculus for C is very important. So there is, again, a very wide range of topics. Some concepts might be intuitive, some might be very unintuitive, depending on how attuned the student is to some of these concepts. And there are others that are extremely difficult, if not borderline impossible, to really gain a full understanding of what's going on without doing mathematical practice. So now to move on to some of the different AP Physics tests. AP Physics 1 is pretty much the first of the four in a sense. So the key thing with AP Physics 1 is the better you are at math, the better you'll do in the class. You need to have a background or be taking Algebra 2 or pre-calculus either beforehand or synchronously. It's highly recommended. And on top of the math that's present, AP Physics 1 introduces this idea of equations and units to work with. They don't need to be memorized because they do provide an equation sheet, but it is very, very recommended that the student understands when to use an equation, where to use it, why to use it, and what concepts tie into it. AP Physics 2 is essentially just a continuation of AP Physics 1. The concepts are more advanced, so it's more difficult by default, but the same strategies apply here. So AP Physics C, which is split into two different tests, mechanics and electricity and magnetism, is again similar to AP Physics A and B 1 and 2, but it uses calculus instead of algebra. So your student needs to be taking a calculus class alongside it, or have taken calculus beforehand to even really have a chance at taking the class. So some of the concepts may or may not be intuitive on a basic level, but the test questions also tend to be notoriously unintuitive. So you again need to know what the equations are, what some of the math is, and understand how they all tie in. It is possible to take this alongside calculus. Usually the AP classes are designed so that the student gets the necessary calculus in before it needs to be applied in AP Physics C. But a background is still, again, really nice. So to talk about some of the strategies for AP Physics now, my AP Physics teachers taught me of these 3-pillar strategy for AP Physics in a sense. It's a 3-step process to kind of check your work both after you do it and the fabled checking your work as you do it so that you don't make any mistakes in the first place. The first pillar is, did you do the math correctly? The second is, do the units match up? And the third is, did you use the correct concepts? So you want to be able to understand the balance being made between common sense and the math and concepts that are applied in physics. So AP Physics really aims to build a new mental framework focused on tackling a different type of problem that a high schooler probably wouldn't have seen before. So the key here is practice, get used to the format of AP Physics, and understand how they want you to answer these questions. Second is understanding how units work. We all know that speed is kilometers per hour or miles per hour. So having an equation where you want to work with distance and time and turning into speed, the key thing is making sure that the units are the same on either side of the equal sign. It's a nice quick sanity check. It's pretty easy with certain formulas. It only takes a few moments, if any at all, to make sure that the units are the same. Because if they're different, something's wrong. If they're the same, then you're on the right track. And the final part, physics is math. You really want to practice your math alongside physics. It's really the main thing to avoid making really basic mistakes. Drop a 0 there, drop a 2 there. You're going to end up with the wrong answer. So if you can do the math right and you got the concepts down, then you have all of AP Physics down.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian. So, and Julian himself graduated from MIT, and then he will be the teacher teaching AP science subjects. Next, Miss Amy, and then she's going to talk about AP English. So Miss Amy has graduated from UCLA and graduated from Duke, and then she has coached students went to very many Ivy League and top universities. So please, Miss Amy, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction, Jingjing. So as you can tell, there's not as many English exams as there are science, but the distribution is about the same. There's a very low 5 score, which compared to AP Chinese is much lower. I thought that was slightly amusing that it was such a high 5 pass rate. One thing about the AP English exams is that if you want to bypass the college requirement of a writing course, most colleges require a 5 on either the AP English language or AP English literature exam. So for that reason, it's very important that students receive a 5 because I think most students want to take advantage of the college credit that can be earned through the AP course. So in that case, why is it so challenging to receive a 5 on AP English language? Well, I think there are a few reasons for this. I have a slide with some of them, but I'm not going to go over all of them. To summarize, I think the first reason is that one, writing is a learned skill, and since it's an English exam, it's very much focused on composition in the FRQ. So in order to improve your composition skills, it's not something that you can, I think, kind of like cram within 2 weeks and then expect immense improvement. A second reason is that writing as a whole, I would say, is sometimes more subjective. It's not like solving an equation where you have a strict correct answer or an incorrect answer. Whether or not an FRQ response will receive a 5 or a high score on the exam requires, I think, you can't just look at a score sheet and say, okay, I got this correct, right? You require some sort of feedback from a person or individual who knows what they're talking about to evaluate your writing and tell you exactly how you can improve. So do we mind moving forward on the slides? I'm going to move forward a bit. Okay, great. So that's just what I went over. So next slide. I think, so how can you achieve a 5 on the AP English exam? So a few reasons. The first one, reason number 1 on the next slide, is know the format of the exam. I'm going to not go over that in detail because you can find all of that online. Essentially, it's broken up into the multiple choice and the FRQ. I think most students will say they struggle with the FRQ section, right? Because again, writing is a learned and acquired skill. The second thing is to know exactly how you are being scored, especially for the FRQ section. So I've included on the next slide a portion of the syllabus, or excuse me, not the syllabus, the rubric on how the FRQ is scored. And one thing that some of you may be aware of is that the scoring guidelines for the APs have changed in the recent years. For the English exams, one way that it has changed is that they have moved towards a more evidentiary, analytical-based scoring system. So I've included the score that says evidence and commentary. So before this, I think they had more of a holistic, overarching approach. I think it was on a scale of 10, I believe, and now it's out of 6. And you'll notice that the majority of the points is based on how a student analyzes and incorporates evidence. So this is a very important skill for students to acquire. So moving on to the next slide. So know how you're being scored. One way that students can gain all 4 points on that evidence and commentary section that I just showed you on the rubric is that they need to know how to analyze and read the passages effectively. Because on the FRQ, you're always given some passages that you need to break down into comprehensible, you need to synthesize information together. So I've put an example here of what annotation looks like. It is, again, an acquired skill. And all my classes, I like to teach my students how to annotate, because I don't want them to, read through the passage blindly and then not know what evidence to select. So I think this is a very important skill to have if you want to succeed not only on the AP exams, but also know how to read documents critically. So annotation, very important. Another thing that they can do is to practice using the official and unofficial sources. So I think the College Board is quite generous in terms of the FRQ in that they do post all of the past exams online. This year at 7EDU, we'll actually be creating our own material for students. So we'll be publishing, I think, our own version of a tell-all booklet, or I think a content strategy for the AP exam, as well as some practice problems for students to review in order to help them on this exam. And last but not least, I did mention that since the writing portion is more subjective, students require feedback from a professional or at least a teacher, right? So I think it's very important that students receive feedback on their writing from AP language teachers and also their own peers so that they know exactly how to improve writing. Otherwise, you're kind of like practicing in a void if you're just practicing by yourself, right? It's very difficult, I think, for students to gauge how they're writing what score based on a rubric. So I think especially for this exams, it's very important to get some outside authority to help. In my classes, I like giving my students anonymous feedback during class, so that way they know specifically how to improve. And then they can also learn from each other's writing as well. So that's just a very quick, I think, overview of the AP language exam. Literature is similar, but literature focuses more on fiction than nonfiction, which is AP language. And then I'll pass it over to AP US history and the history courses.
Oh, thank you, Amy. So we'll have a free evaluation test, AP, for your students. So you know exactly where the level is. And then we also provide 13 AP classes for the mock testing and to prepare your students to be better prepared. Okay, next, I'm going to introduce Mr. David Kelly. And then Mr. David graduated from UCLA, and then currently he's teaching AP social science subjects to the current high school students. Mr. David, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. So I have the AP US history portion, and I just shared this with you as far as what some of my students sometimes feel like as far as the AP class, and especially when they're taking 3 or 4 of the classes at the same time. A push me off a cliff, for those of you that are in that smiling, chuckling kind of bad grandpa humor. And mine is clickable. So as I'm going through, if you can click one at a time, you can get to the bullet points, please. All right, so challenges. We're going to go ahead and go to the next, just click here. Content mastery, writing skills, and then sure enough, the third one, we have 3 that I identified, test anxiety. When we talk about the AP US history material, the content mastery is in-depth as all of them. But with the memorization piece that we're talking about, scope and sequence being from, ancient civilization times all the way to current times, that's a large scope and sequence. So I would say that one of the challenges is that mastery of content. And then the writing skills, as Ms. Amy spoke of, we have the same challenges in that area. We have, and we'll talk about test structure here in a little bit, but them understanding the concepts of contextualization and analytical reasoning and challenges of that require a lot of support. And then, of course, test anxiety. I think that's one that we look over quite often. So it's important to focus on that as far as the challenge and understand how we can come up with strategies, which are next here. So let's go to strategies. As far as preparation, one of the things that I'm realizing now, later in my career, I've been teaching for 23 years now, is that the College Board test preparation, if we're looking to get a 5, that curriculum that the College Board has created on what's called My AP is in-depth, great practice. And one of the things I've learned through this process of teaching is that, it's practice, it's repetition. And so that practice and that repetition there on the College Board, and then being supported by a tutor or a teacher, by peers, whatever it is, doing that collaboratively, I've found that students have had a lot of success. Same in the area of the practicing of the writing skills, as Ms. Amy spoke of. The challenge there is, that we have an LEQ, we have a deep, which is a long essay question, we have a document-based question, and then we have short answer questions. So there's 3 components of the writing there. So we're going to have to understand, what our writing strengths are, what our writing weaknesses are, and then we go ahead and we can do that through peer evaluation, self-evaluation, teacher evaluation. I think that helps quite a bit. And then we have one more here on the preparation, I believe. And then obviously the stress management strategies, the simple thing of understanding and coping with, and that's test taking strategies along with other healthy mechanisms to make sure the kids are staying mentally strong through all this as well. So next slide. I hope you guys like my humor on that. I showed you this as far as just where we're at in the AP history world. As you can see, that 5 rate just hovers slightly above 10%. And I would tell you that's traditionally what I've seen in the brick and mortar classroom as well in our school district. And I can tell you simply because we have a class ratio of 30 to 1 student normally to 1 teacher. And so to give that individualized instruction inside of the class setting there in the brick or mortar setting is hard. So it requires a lot of outside support and practice. You can see the pass rate is 48% in 2021 and 54% in 2019. So we do get a pass rate, but once again, as Julian made reference, these students are signing up simply, either they have a strong love of history, right? They have a passionate love of history, or they're looking to get the college credit. So if you can combine those two, it makes it for a beautiful class. But it's one of those two, and when it's that part as far as getting credit, we know through experience that the higher schools are looking for those fives. So those fives are hard to obtain. And so we need to provide that support, and that's what we're here to do. So if we can go to that next slide, I can show you some of the things that we would do to provide that support. Next click. So here are our themes. We talked about how this history, you go ahead and click on them also. These are basically the units, as we would call them, that we have to cover. And the reason why I added these is just to show you I'm a history lover. This is what I love doing, talking history. So when we talk about that American national identity, as far as the foundation and the politics and power, and then how work, exchange of technology, culture, society, all of this, migration, settlement, and then geography and the environment, and how all these themes are intertwined to create the history that we have here in this country. It's amazing to me. The reason why I share that, though, and as I said, I get passionate about talking about these things, is that's a lot of material in a very short amount of time. So the challenge there is, once again, to make sure that we're providing whatever extra support that is, whether that be through these classes here, whatever it needs to be to make sure that these students are having that success at the level we want. Okay, we can click on next. So not only do we have themes here, but as we're going to see here in the next clicks, there are also, go ahead, you can go ahead and click them all. There are also certain specific skills that they're tested on. So they have to learn the content, and then they're tested on skills as well. They have to be able to contextualize. They have to be able to compare, contrast, causation, and how things stay the same and how they change over time. And so thematically, here we are, we have to have this material being taught, and then we have skills that go along with these. And so that's where it comes in, understanding this is what we do for the student. How do we do it? And that's where I'm saying, once again, it's going to be that practice through the College Board. It's going to be the practice through the writing. It's going to be the teacher support, all those elements that I discussed earlier. So if we can go next slide. I wanted to share here with you, as Ms. Amy spoke of, most of my students feel like that the multiple choice they're comfortable with, that they understand test taking strategies. And if they don't, we teach those in our group time. And we go through process of elimination, and we go through how to go ahead and understand context and deconstruct questions, treating it as close reads. And so by the end of that, those test taking strategies, as long as they're strong, and they do have to be strong in their content, they typically score well on the multiple choice. Okay, so that we find that. Where we see is unless a student is an exceptional writer coming in, and they have those skills, and as Amy said, these are acquired skills for most of us at least. These are skills that we have to teach, of what it means to contextualize, what it means to use analytical reasoning. Those are terms that we throw around, and as we've graduated college already ourselves, and as you're sitting here and graduated already, you understand those now. But getting those type of concepts into a 15 or a 16 or a 17-year-old young mind can be quite the challenge. And so that's where we find is when we get into these short answer questions, we teach them the simple strategy of like, okay, hey, here's the ACE method. All you have to do is answer this question, cite evidence, and then expand upon that using analytical reasoning. They're like, well, what's analytical reasoning? So then we have to break that down and explain it to them, and then show them. We model it for them, and then sure enough, we do peer evaluation, self-evaluation, then we practice until they feel comfortable in that side of it. And then when you move on to the DBQ writing part, this is the piece that I would say of the three that they generally feel pretty good in this area, because there's documents that they have to use analytical reasoning and have to treat the documents as close reads, and they have to learn how to annotate, which is another skill that I work on in my class extensively, so that they understand how to pull evidence out to prove their thesis. And so we look at that, and we spend a lot of time on that. We do a lot of close reads. We learn a lot of annotation strategies. And so that'll take us through that DBQ portion. The last one is that long essay question. This is where students sometimes hit the wall, because what happens here is there are no documents. They're given an essay prompt, and just as they have to do with the DBQ, then they have to answer the question from their own content knowledge that they have, and then they have to go ahead and pull out memorization evidence to go ahead and prove their thesis. So at this point, it's a combination of the writing skills that we've taught through the entire class, and then on top of that, the content mastery. So those are some of the challenges that we see with that AP history format. As I said, it's a matter of staying strong through that process, trusting the process, making sure that we're providing the support that the students need, as I said, through that peer, self, and then teacher evaluation, and then, of course, the multiple strategies that these students are needing to have the academic success. I think I have one more slide. As I tell my students all the time, only the strong can survive. So it takes that mindset, and this is one of the things I focus on there as far as that mental aspect. That, you know, as I said, they come in because they love history or because they want to score. Either way, by the end of it, they could want to just give up. And I tell them that this is just like life, that they learn how to persevere, and that perseverance is going to develop their character. And sure enough, that character is going to give them the hope that they have to have the success, not only on the AP exam, but more importantly in life. Yes, and I didn't discuss the other classes just real quick, just to make sure. I know that we also offer the AP World History and AP Psychology we've discussed as well. Formats almost identical as far as strategies that we use, and all those is there. So if you do have any questions about those subjects, I can answer them at the end as well.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. So next speaker is also the last speaker of today is Dr. Yan. So she is postdoc graduate from Stanford, and then she previously was Stanford professor, and she is going to talk about, she's also co-founder of 7EDU, and she's an amazing math teacher. So she's going to talk about AP math subjects.
Thank you, Jingjing, for the introduction. I think probably most of our attendees are parents. And I hope parents, after you listen to our talk today, you have some appreciation on how much your kids are going through with all the AP subjects. And these are not easy because they should resemble college level understanding of the subjects. And the AP Calculus is one of the most popular tests in AP because I know that at school, students usually for math, they follow a certain math pathway, but we know that either student will take AP Calculus, maybe for the faster student, and the student may take AP Calculus at the 10th grade, or some will take at the 12th grade. And there are two types of APs, and I often hear parents asking me whether the kids should sign up for AB or BC. That really depends on how much your kid will get into the STEM field, or how likely your child will go to the STEM field. If your child is aimed for STEM field, and then probably he or she should take BC, because that will be the highest level that a typical high school student can take. And of course, if a student is really capable, you can take a next level calculus class over at the school. Okay, but the difference between the two obviously is that BC covers more topics in AB. So in fact, when a student takes BC, the student will receive two scores, one score for AB, sub-score, and then the other composites for BC. Yeah, so student will have his or her AB score, even the student only takes BC. But in terms of the challenging topics, I'm listening here again. I think for parents, probably those topics don't make too much sense to you. But if you have students here, if some terms don't look familiar to you, that means you should review those concepts. And if you look at how well students did in last year in terms of the score distribution. Sorry, go back, Jingjing. Yeah, so go back to the slide. Yeah, so but if you look at the percentage of students who got 5, that can be misleading for you to think, oh, it's easier to get 5 in BC than AB. Does that mean BC is easier than AB? Absolutely not. Okay, BC is much more challenging than AB. I think the reason why you see higher percentage of students getting 5 in BC is because those students are better prepared. I think just like Julia and David said, only students who are very strong in math will probably reach BC or have the courage to take BC in the first place. Okay, so BC is hard. To get 5, actually not easy. Don't be misled by the percentage of students getting 5. Okay, just like when you pick a subject, you should know this is a subject you should master or you should do well when you take the test. Yeah, so we can now move to the next slide. Okay, now here I just want to use a slide to emphasize to students that for math and science, the more you understand, the less you need to memorize. We should emphasize understanding rather than we should focus on understanding rather than memorizing formulas. Because based on my experience teaching students, for calculus or for like other math classes or even statistics classes, students usually ask me, can you give me a formula sheet? I say, yes, I can give you the formula sheet, but I really don't want to give you the formula sheet until probably the day before the test or a couple of days before test, because I want you to review the concepts we have learned. I just refresh your memory. But if you think studying for math or studying for science is about memorization, I think that sets not a good path for you to get a good score, because a lot of concepts require deep understanding so that you know how to apply them to solve different types of questions. Now, so coming back to the tips or strategies on preparing for AP Calculus. Like I said, understanding the concepts is very important, very important. I think usually, while AP Calculus classes run for 1 year, and around like every spring, when students reach the end of the class, some of them have forgotten what they learned in the fall, the semester before. And therefore, it is very, very important for you to review all the important concepts in AP Calculus, including limits, continuity, derivatives, integrals, and for BC students, series is the most challenging unit. Yeah, so you have to make sure they understand those concepts very well. And then if you do find gaps or things that you have forgotten, you don't fully understand, and that means you probably need to zone in those weak areas, practice more in these related topics. And then before you take the actual test in May, you should take at least 5 complete tests. I mean, complete, again, not just topic by topic, because when you do the complete test, it's challenging for you to switch between different concepts. And the challenge here is that you need to know which method to use for a particular problem. And for FRQ, the free response questions, those problems usually involve different concepts. You really need to know how they are connected and how to use them together in solving those free response questions. And also, while yes, we all understand that in English and the history, you need to write a lot. You need to have a good, strong writing skill. But even for math and the stats, you really need to know how to explain your thoughts. You cannot just have a bunch of numbers listed there. You have to explain your thought process using calculus terminologies. Don't use layman terms. Okay, you are taking calculus, therefore you have to show, you have to demonstrate you understand the theory behind each step. Okay, yeah, so now we can move on to AP Stats, AP Statistics. Now, nowadays, AP Stats become quite popular because statistics becomes a very important tool for students in different fields, engineering, business, or even science, or even sociology, right? So, but however, I think statistics, although statistics I don't think is harder than calculus, but for some reason, most of my students seem to have trouble understanding statistics. I think it's mostly because this topic is not as familiar as math, because kids start learning math when they were very young, okay? But they start learning statistics or probably formally only during this year. So most of the challenging topics I have seen students struggle with are probability, sampling distribution, hypothesis testing, and the statistics error. But if you look at a student who got 5 in that test, it's not very high, okay? Although, again, I think this test actually is easier than calculus. But if you look at percentage of students who got 5 in this test, actually it's lower than students who got 5 in calculus tests. Okay, strategies are pretty similar on how you should prepare for your math, focus on understanding, review all the relevant concepts. If you find any gaps, make sure that you will spend time focusing on practicing problems in those concepts. Take at least 5 complete tests before your test date, and also practice how to explain your thoughts in those free response questions using statistical vocabulary in context, because statistics are, all the problems are word problems.
So I have a question for Amy first. For what's your recommendation on choosing AP English classes? Do you recommend the students who are have interest in STEM or towards STEM direction to choose AP or just a humanity, or what's your recommendations? Thank you.
I think usually there are 2 AP exams offered. That's AP English Language and AP English Literature. Now, what you choose should be one based on what your school offers. A lot of schools do not offer an AP English language course, so that will be, that's very dependent on the student to be self-motivated to study for it then. And it also depends on whether the student is more interested in nonfiction or fiction. So the AP English language exam is focused on analyzing nonfiction passages, right? Historical documents, it can be speeches, etc. AP English literature is very much, as the word says, focus on literature, so fiction, so novels, short stories. I think in terms of difficulty, when you go look at the score distribution, literature is more difficult. It also requires knowledge of, I think, the details, or at least the synopses and content of classical works of literature. And most students take AP English literature during their senior year of school. AP English language is usually reserved for the junior year of school. So I would say consider the student's individual strengths, what course the school offers, their interest in fiction versus nonfiction, and select accordingly.
Thank you, Amy. I'll move on for more questions. And the first one is IB program more beneficial than AP classes only in terms of getting into top universities? What are the pros and cons of AP versus IB? Dr. Yan, are you going?
Yeah, I can say something about it because we do have students who are in both programs. So just from the experience helping those students, well, you can see that I'm not saying that which curriculum is better and in terms of college application, because sometimes it's not an option for students. So most high school students in the US will take AP because that's the program available to them, and some students take IB because that's the curriculum available to them. Yeah, so in terms of college admission, I don't see any difference between the two. But in terms of, okay, so if a student has a choice between AP and IB, I think that really depends on how focused a student is in a certain area. Now, IB tends to be more comprehensive, meaning that if you look at the curriculum, that requires students to go like in certain direction for a longer period of time. So for example, we know that students, like in the AP system, right, you can take AP biology, AP chemistry, and AP physics during 3 years. But in IB curriculum, that's not an option. You cannot take IB physics, IB chemistry, and IB physics. You cannot do that. During the last 2 years, you kind of have to stick to one assigned subject. Or if you pick two, that means you have to stick to both, meaning that for the 11th grade and the 12th grade, you have to choose the same subject. So in that sense, I demand more from students with less flexibility for students to choose between different subjects. Yeah, so that's the kind of the main difference between the two. But then for AP courses, again, these are more popular courses, and then probably you will be able to find more resources from online or from your friends or from the people around you, so who can help you. Yeah, it's just more popular in the United States compared to IB.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yan. And then the next question is it recommended to study AP Physics 1 and the pre-calculus concurrently in the same year? I think
Pre-calculus will definitely give you the tools you need to succeed in both AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2. It's algebra 2, pre-calculus, usually just the moderately more advanced versions of algebra that you'll be using in AP Physics 1 and 2. So pre-calculus might be a little bit ahead of AP Physics 1, but studying them concurrently would still give you the benefits of both. You'd be prepared for both pretty well, I would say.
Dr. Yan, sorry.
Just to say a few words, I think most of the time students don't have a lot of options in that case, especially for math, right? So I think, I'm not sure whether the parents asking the question because the students, will take pre-calculus next year, but whether it's a time for the student to pick up AP Physics 1. If that's your question, definitely the student is capable. Okay, but you don't want to because pre-calculus it's a kind of prerequisite for calculus. It's the pre-class before calculus, and therefore, if you try to push forward or to trying to get a fast track, and by taking a summer class of pre-calculus, and that your foundation will not be very solid. Yeah, so I usually don't recommend students taking summer classes, very fast-paced summer classes for those high-level math, because you do need to have the foundation to climb higher.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. And then further, there's one question kind of related. Then do you two recommend taking AP Physics C while taking AP Calculus concurrently? Will that be too much workload for students at the same time? Thank you.
Workload-wise, AP Physics C is definitely still the third, somewhat also fourth, considering the two different tests in the chain of different AP classes for physics. So by then, they expect the student to be used to the style of stuff that AP Physics puts it in, the type of workload involved with it. But if they have really, really solid math skills, like 5s on previous physics tests, 5s on AB, maybe even 4s, or just a really good motivation, work ethic, then the skills will definitely be in place to succeed in both. It just turns into a question of, can they handle the workload? But if they can, I'd say it would be a solid option. Definitely possible.
Yeah, definitely very challenging. And depending on whether the student actually took AP Calculus AB or maybe during the summer. So a calculus has two calculus. If the student has zero background in calculus, we highly recommend student to take maybe a community college calculus class or have at least do a preview calculus class. Oh, by the way, we do offer a calculus preview class for those students because you don't need the entire curriculum of calculus in order to take AP Physics C, but you do need to know the basic rules of derivative and the integrals. And for those, we will cover that during our AP preview class, AP Calculus preview class. So if your goal is to start taking your first calculus class at a school and AP Physics C at the same time, it will be very challenging if you are not prepared if you don't get any preparation during the summer. It'll be very fast-paced.
Thank you both. So for APUSH prep, does high school teacher prepare the students for test? And also, do the strategies for APUSH apply to AP US government as well? Thank you.
So the answer to the first is depends on your teacher. I've taught in the AP classroom for 23 years, and it depends on your teacher that you're going to have. Does your teacher practice on a regular basis the writing skills and the curriculum from the College Board AP as far as the multiple choice practice? How much writing? And these are questions that I would ask. And if the answers aren't sufficient, then you're going to need more support to get that 5. Sure enough, how much writing do they practice? Are they writing weekly? Sure enough, are they how much are they reviewing? As I said, there's so much content mastery that how much time does that teacher spend reviewing with those students on a weekly basis? So those are all the questions I would ask as far as of the current student. I'm sorry, of the teacher if it was my child, and make sure that those answers are proper. And if they're not proper, then sure enough, in this desire to get the score, I would say then the support would be a higher level support would be needed. As far as the government, strategies are the same as we talked about when we talked about test taking strategies and review strategies and all of those things. There is a minimal difference in the AP government exam. There's still 50% the multiple choice, and then 50% is writing, but the writing is 4 questions. And there isn't the structure, as I said, the LEQ, DBQ, short answer, that belongs to the US history. In the government, it's 4 questions. They're basically short answer questions that you need to be able to compare Supreme Court cases, analyze data. So I hope that answered that question.
I have one more question for Dr. Yan. So our high school doesn't offer AP statistics until senior year. Do you recommend students self-studying in junior year and do AP test? Thank you.
Again, that really depends on how much extra time the student has during the junior year. I really doubt the student actually has a lot of extra time because the student actually should be taking a lot of AP classes at his own school. It's not necessary for you to just push for that extra AP stats class during the junior year. But if you do want to have the AP, if you do want to take the May standard test before you can apply, before you apply for college, I think you probably want to start from summer instead of adding another extra load during the regular semester. Yeah, so in short, it will probably a good thing to do, but it depends on how much load the student has already during the junior year. And then if you think the student can spare some time during the summer, this summer, assuming the student is going for junior year, right? So you probably want to start preparing for stats or self-study stats this summer so that he or she won't be too overwhelmed during the junior year.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you please introduce AP Environmental Science, how to prepare for it? Thank you.
I think I can knock this out in about a minute. AP Environmental Science takes a little bit of a different approach from AP Bio, AP Chemistry, AP Physics. So the three aforementioned ones are more so generalized outlooks of those different branches of science, while AP Environmental Science tends to take some of those basic concepts and begin to actually apply them towards real concepts. There is application towards actual concepts in each of those three classes, but AP Environmental focuses on biology, chemistry, and physics, all within the concept of the environment, within the concept of ecology, specific fields of maybe marine biology or zoology or atmospheric chemistry, and pretty much synthesizes all of them together to give a broader view of what it would be to actually study the environment. Because there are those different areas of different points of biology, ecology, atmospheric chemistry, and quite a few other concepts that are all kind of tied together. But aside from that, it is still similar to, say, AP Bio or AP Chem, where it is a lot of scientific information. There's data analysis that you need to learn. There's other statistical concepts, scientific concepts that kind of underlie the actual course's content that are important to learn from a STEM standpoint. And aside from that, it is essentially just another AP Science class, really. Just focusing more on the environment, the idea of climate change, and applying some of those basic concepts towards this grand idea of the environment, the climate, and everything else that the class kind of covers.
Okay, thank you, Julian. So I have two related questions for Dr. Yan. One is it okay to take both AP Calculus AB and BC at different years? Or another question is, do you recommend students to skip Calculus AB and take BC directly so they can take multivariable calculus in senior year? Thank you.
Okay, so I think that really depends on the school curriculum design. If your school requires to, I know some schools requires that your student has to take AB and the BC in 2 consecutive years. You really cannot skip one. So if that's the case, okay, then you just take both. But if that's not the case, if the option, I actually recommend students to take BC because, as I mentioned earlier, you actually will receive a AB score, even if you just take BC test. So you have an AB subscore. And in fact, the college will consider that as your AB score. So meaning that you can just take one test and get two scores for both AP and BC. And of course, that requires students to much better prepare for in math because BC is more challenging than AB. And the teacher tend to go be very fast paced in class and leave little time for students to like absorb information. So you should be able to, you must be able to pick up the pace in order to succeed in that class.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Yan. I have a question about 7EDU AP prep class. Is from February 26th. When the students haven't finished their school AP class yet, are they ready to take the prep class?
Well, that's a very good question. We start from reviewing earlier topics because, again, I think I mentioned earlier that this is a one-year curriculum, and the most of students, sadly speaking, they have forgotten what they learned last semester. So we actually start picking from the earlier topics, meaning that we will review the topics they learned in fall. And then we gradually moved to the topics to run in spring. Yeah, so we don't see the gap because we have run this class for many years. It's never an issue. Yeah, we just help them to start reviewing the earlier topics earlier instead of wait till the last month. And then when they have to, so many subjects to prepare, and then they have to review the topics they run a few months back.
How many AP tests should my son, a junior, take? Do you have any recommendations? Thank you.
Oh, I think still, it's sometimes it's not like how many you can take, because schools, especially public schools, are quite limited. Even private schools are quite limited in terms of how many APs you can take. We do have students who, by the time when they graduate, they have taken 18 or 19 APs. That's it's extraordinary, but they don't take all the APs at a school. I'm pretty sure they take APs by self-studying some subjects. So within school during the same year, I don't recommend more than 5 or 6, because depending on the subject itself. So if you take AP Math, like basically calculus, AP one of the science subjects, and AP Push and AP Len, I think just these 4 courses will take a lot of your time, because these are hardcore AP classes. But if you take AP Psychology, and it's not, in terms of workload, it's not on par as AP Push, right? So it's not just a number of subjects. I think we need to ask why, right? Why do you take so many APs? It's not necessarily true that the more APs you take, the better, or the better chance you will have for college admission. And you really have to consider your course load, as well as do those APs represent your career interest. We don't just collect AP. We don't just take APs for the sake of taking APs.
So we're giving everybody attending today 20-minute free consultation with our teachers, counselors. We have a whole team to support your students. So please reach out this contact information to claim your 20 minutes, and then just we can answer any education related questions about your student. So let's move on. Next question. What would you recommend to do after Calculus BC? I think this should for Dr. Yan.
Oh, so I know that some schools will offer multivariate calculus or discrete math. I think it really depends on whether the student wants to become engineer or computer science. If engineer, probably multivariate calculus. If computer science, probably discrete math. But I think either one will do, which already is just a means for you to demonstrate that you are very, very strong in math. It really doesn't matter, yeah, which more advanced math course you take.
Okay, thanks.
And also, I think one thing I want to point out is that you don't want to overload yourself in your senior year, because you will spend a lot of time preparing for your college application.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to have another junior year, like a course load in your senior year.
Okay. Great, thank you. I see Mr. Kelly already answered the question about AP Push textbooks and resource. Yeah, please.
Just real quick on that, I put 2 links in there to help you. The first was a Princeton review, and it's a condensed review book that most of my students have used, and those that have success at that 4 or 5 level have used that as a review book on top of all the other strategies that we use to review. And then the second one was the Fiveable. It was a top 10 list of AP Push textbooks. I currently use America's History, the Henrietta. It was the reason behind that when I picked it was that it was the first to be redesigned in 2015 to fit the new AP Push format. So that's one that I highly encourage. The others are good, and I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of them. But as I said, that America's History was just a redesigned book directly for the new format.
So UC for UC schools, do they require SAT now, but the CSU system is still? So this is not directly related to AP, but maybe Dr. Yan can answer. She's expert.
Yeah, and well, UC start a test blind, and the CSU will follow. But it doesn't mean actually the SAT score will not be helpful. In fact, they will use their SAT scores to help students to place them into the right level. So if you give them additional, for example, if your SAT reading and writing achieve a certain level, and then they will place you to an appropriate level for your English classes. Yeah, so probably they won't use that for admission directly, but they will use that for their course placement. And also if a student on a waitlist, they will consider additional factors, one of which is your standard test score.
CS major, is this necessary or helpful to take AP chemistry or AP biology? Thank you.
I'm a pretty strong believer in being able to kind of understand science for science itself. It's nice to be able to actually specialize into whatever you want to major in. Like in my case, I focused on AP Physics because I went to MIT to do environmental engineering. Sadly, my school didn't offer AP Environmental, but it would have been nice to be able to take a few other AP Science classes just because you still develop the skills that kind of underpin what they'll be doing at college as a STEM major. So the statistical analysis, data analysis, a lot of the scientific tools, ways of thinking are all something that the earlier you can develop them, which you can develop them through taking multiple AP Science classes, the better that you'll be off actually moving into college, and the more essentially ahead you'll be, and the better that you'll do.
Okay,
Plus,
thank you. Sorry,
you also never know if you discover the second scientific passion. So it can always be nice to explore a bit as well.
Can you talk about AP Computer Science A?
Oh, okay. So usually parents probably to help us better answer your question, you can give us a little bit of context. Both AP Computer Science A and AP Computer Science B are intro computer science class courses. And the difference between the two is A is more like a coding based, and the P, the principal one, is more conceptual based. Having said that, we actually have students who don't intend to major computer science take those classes. We actually encourage them to take those classes if they have the time and they have the interest, because I think in the future, being able to at least to do some simple programming or understanding the coding concept is very important in the new generation. Yeah, so if the parents wants to know the difference between the two courses, one is more coding based and the other is more conceptual based. Yeah, but both are not very hard. Of course, if students have difficulty, we can always help them. Yeah, in fact, this year we do have a AP Computer Science A mock test strategy review class. I think that really depends on the school itself. We know that some school teachers haven't even finished going over all the concepts by the test date, right? So in that case, parents have to know what's going on and find additional resources to help students.
Okay, great, thank you. So I do have a very specific detailed question. Our school district provide a math course that combines Algebra 2, trig, and pre-calculus. Do you recommend taking this class?
Okay, if that's one of the options given by the school, and then if you want to show that the student is taking the most challenging in math class, then the answer is yes. I think most of the time it's not an option given to the student, whether you want to take it or you don't want to take it. Yeah, so if that's the fast track the student, the school is offering to student, and the student wants to major in STEM, yes, go take it. But then of course, your foundation will not be very solid. So what do? You need to get some additional support or do some harder problems. Okay, it will be very fast paced. Okay, so I want to use this opportunity to share a little bit about a lot of struggles my students have, probably caused by the pandemic last year or the year before. Students did not have a good foundation in the previous subject, and then when they get to the next one, that's a really struggle for them, because your school teachers will not consider that you didn't have a strong foundation last year or some learning loss. last year, right? They will still expect the same thing for this level. So in that case, you feel the student struggling because the courses covers too many concepts, or the teacher go through the concepts too quickly, then you really need additional support for students to build a solid foundation in these subjects combined.
I want to thank Mr. Kelly, Julian, and Dr. Yan for your time and to answer all these questions, give us such detailed explanation on all the subject. So for parents, if sorry we couldn't answer all the questions, and then please, you have our contact information. Please send email to info@7edu.org. We'll follow up and answer your question as much as we could. Thank you so much for attending. And